few improvements, including more use of off-site fabrication. Hopefully that make like a production more efficient, and then improve on-site process and product innovation. We're talking about the product-led as well as process-led improvement. That is category 6 and 7. And some other like motivations, like whether there could be some benefit from standardizing design, components, and construction methods, such as the use of DFMA as an approach, as well as the use of digital modeling. And more importantly, is to hope more importantly is hoping that the decision can be driven by data and produce provide decisions that can be benchmarked and can be evidenced. So this particular project officially is already finished, but it is not quite, because it is a continuous improvement process, and we hope that the framework can be implemented. So it will take a little bit of time. It's a lot to do with the limitation of financial year. So it is a project that is only for 5 months, and it is funded by National Highways fully. And so I have to thank National Highways for providing such a great opportunities for us to develop a tool together. And so we hope that the tool can hopefully enable the adoption of industrialized construction in the long run. And then the tool would be able to be made use of by National Highway for benchmarking and for making decisions as well. So as a start, we look a little bit about, we look at the product control framework or contract control framework. And basically they have 7 stages. And one thing we thought that purely based on the use of PMV, that is what the building sector is rolling out, is very, very limiting, because it failed to identify the opportunity to improve. So we look at the process and then identify 3 areas that could potentially create a cycle for adoption of industrialized construction. And the starting point would be to identify the benefit. So we propose the use of a tool called benefit profiling tool as a start. And after you identify the the benefit, then as an organization, it is very important to make sure that the decision to adopt is support with evidence. So, and then in the process, there is a process of developing business case. There's a process of developing design schemes. So it is important that in the process, you can evidence the benefit and as well as measuring it. So we're talking about developing options for assessment. So there is a bit of development of the use of should cost and value analysis too. But at the moment, that is not the big part of the project. And the last one is about benchmarking too, which is the use of an industrialized assessment scorecards. So how to measure industrialized construction? For infrastructure work, it is important that we consider not only the 7th stage. So we create an extra stage called category 0, which we can make use of the design process to identify the design motivation to assess the Cat 0. And then for the category 1 to 7, it will be measured by PMV. And then for category 6 and 7, there needs to be another tool to look at it. So as a start, we create a tool and we make use of 3 different categories: category 0, category PMV, and then category 6 and 7. And then we have a weighted approach to assess the individual category. It didn't go too incredibly well because in the stakeholders' use of those of the tool, that we migrate the use of it from the Department of Education's tool, and it didn't implement quite well because they found the tool itself is too prescriptive, and then they identified attributes. We use a set of questions, which is yes or no answer, and then people find it a little bit binary and difficult to judge, and then also there's a bit of disconnection between the various parts of the tools. So right now we develop a slightly different approach, and it try to start with aligning the objective with the National Highways priorities. We're talking about first, there are 4 different categories. First is being efficient and productive delivery. Second is customer and journey experience. The third is about the safety and well-being. And then the last one is net zero and environmental value. And that aligns with the National Highways priority. So what it is that we have 4 different categories of benefit, and that each of them would have 3 or 4 drivers. What we want to do is for the design team, led by the technical advisor, to go through a set of questions that actually help them to decide whether a particular driver is relevant. And if they are, they have to make the relevant justification. So by giving the justification and identify the maturity, then we can produce a profile of benefit pretty much aligned with the value toolkit approach. And the benefit of this is you have identified the priority as well as the rationale. Now, after you identify the benefit driver, then the next stage would be to carry out a design maturity assessment. So what we did is we identified 14 different themes for design. We're talking about design for DFMA, design for logistics, design for integration, design for user experience, etc. 14 of them. And then each of them map with 5 levels of maturity. So this is one example. We have 2 themes. One is designed for DFMA. The other one is designed for sequencing and integration. And because earlier on in the benefit profiling, they would have already defined the driver with the reasons. And then at this point, they can then consider what sort of IC implementation would be possible through answering the assessment questions, writing the justification, and identify the current maturity based on the metrics that developed. And they can also identify the target maturity score. In fact, this is one of the aspects that is important. So that is the last part. And so ongoing work is that we hope that you can have a look. So we hope that the work could be implemented in a real life project soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep your questions, please, to the final end of the session. So can we, just make a note of your questions. I apologize. It's just otherwise it would be impossible to keep the time for the day. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Next presenter is Emmanuel.
10 minutes, right?
Yeah, 10 minutes. That's right. We have shorter presentations, so we have many people presenting. So, Emmanuel, please.
Yes, thanks. So I'm just using this opportunity to share some of the lessons we learned from a recent project that is not that recent. It's a project we completed in 2023. It was basically a 4-year project, a 3-year project actually, but because of COVID, we had to pause for 1 year due to the personal nature of the interactions that we should have been having to deliver the project. So it was funded by the CITB. But again, I've just put an amount there that was kind of allocated to supporting the supply chains that we're dealing with on kind of trying to find opportunities where they could drive efficiencies through innovation. One of the things that we realized is that a lot of the small kind of SME type companies that operate in the sector, which actually dominate the sector, sometimes they don't have that opportunity, they don't have that space because they are moving from job to job to job. And though they are close to the work and sometimes, see all the problems, they don't have the space to reflect and to feed that back in terms of how we can keep improving. And so that was one of the things that we tried to tackle with this project. But as a bit of a background, productivity is something that we need to continue to improve upon what we define as productivity. I think it's still open for debate because that is something I think should constantly be shifting to reflect current realities. But as I said, a lot of these micro firms, SME type firms, and then the side workforce, whether it's labor they are providing or whether it's the specialist trades, a lot of the innovations that we are trying to drive to the industry are driven from kind of top down. Whether it's MMC, whether it's BIM, it's mandated by the government here in the UK. We've just looked at Franco's kind of government policy on industrialized construction and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to our downstream supply chains, the firms that are actually delivering on site and how they also join this conversation in terms of how we innovate and drive efficiencies forward. So as part of the innovation-driven procurement project, we identified these 4 areas as areas that we needed to kind of develop or co-develop with them. And particularly interestingly is this whole aspect of collaborative behaviors where we had to engage a behavioral psychologist to work with a lot of these small firms to kind of unlock, potentials there that was going to, which is why we started with that, because that was then going to set the tone for everything else that we were trying to do. And part of what I'll be talking about just relates to, a lot of the collaborative risk management work, which ties into a lot of work that Paul has been doing as well during his time at NTU. All right. So in terms of our methodology, again, it was an action research kind of methodology that we used. We knew where we wanted to get to, but we needed to keep learning as we went through the process and then kind of tweaking things based on the feedback that we were getting from the site workforce that we were dealing with as part of the first phase. So the first phase was kind of face-to-face with, firms that we had selected and that were kind of open to try things out. And then we kind of deployed things in phase 2 virtually and did a lot of campaigns to get firms to kind of sign up. And then if they were interested in pushing things further, we then offered the same support that we were offering with that 250K budget to kind of support them to identify areas of innovation that they wanted to improve. And then we support them through the process as well. So that was the methodology in a nutshell. But we needed an engagement strategy because how do we engage these firms? So, right. So, we kind of co-delivered and co-designed with the initial firms that we selected, which were 3 firms: dry lining, M&E, sealing. On the Morgan Sindall project, they were an industrial partner for the project. And then you can see how that translates into the virtual phase when we got there. So these were, some of the things that we were able to do with the in-person. We were live on site with them. So before they started their work, we brought them in, and went through, these stuff with them. In terms of some of so these are just solutions and suggestions that came from bottom up, from the supply chain themselves, from the workforce, in terms of issues that they wanted us to challenge from the face-to-face kind of period. I'll just pick one of it to show. So the dry lining guys, for instance, made a number of suggestions when they wanted, like pre-marked lines that could help them fix the plasterboard quicker, because they don't have to then mark them. A lot of aging people still working in plasterboard, they thought the weight, 40 kg. What can we do about it if we could work with the manufacturer to make the boards lighter, and so on. So we actually did some steady engage with British Gypsum, and we were able to at least achieve one of the changes that they wanted, where they tried it on 3 projects where they pre-order 6 weeks to the time. So they need to give them all the shadows, and they pre-order the cuts that they actually need for the height, because these heights vary in different projects, and that helped to reduce some waste and make them a little bit more efficient. Okay, so just, as a quick whistle-top tour on what we did and the metrics that we achieved. The metrics here are not just from these initial 3, but we extended it during the virtual kind of engagements and firms coming forward. We engaged with about 40 plus firms, and these are some of the metrics on the impacts that we were able to track over that 3-year period. Okay, so again, there is a project site. You can find more details. I've not updated it for some time now. We still have a few firms that come through wanting support, and you can ask any questions later on about it. Thanks. I'm hoping I've not taken.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Now we're going to call. Okay, so sorry, we have a little change. Because Salid has go earlier. So Salid Rabi is going to talk about his work around digital twins in the built environment, from operation and maintenance virtual walls.
Is this one?
Pardon?
No.
The time is 15 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Said, Associate Professor in Built Environment at Birmingham City University. I'm going to talk about digital twins in the built environment, from operation and maintenance to virtual worlds. So before starting, maybe it's good to basically establish a definition of digital twin. Digital twin has 4 key pillars. One is monitoring, so it has to monitor the one aspect or a few aspects of the building or assets, also visualize the current state. Also, it's important that it has that element of prediction, so it's able to use AI for the prediction element of that. And also, it's able to make intervention. So the intervention can be automated intervention, or it can help the users to make more informed decision. There's a difference between digital twin and BIM. There is a huge debate. What are the differences? But one thing is that normally BIM has the basically unilateral data synchronization between the physical objects and the digital model, whereas the idea with digital twin is it has bilateral data synchronization. That's why it also has that element of making intervention. Digital twin is at the heart of digital transformation. So to enable lean construction, to enable net zero sustainability. So it can act as a very good enabler for any of the initiatives that we have within the industry. So I'll give 2 examples of how we have applied lean. We have applied digital twin in practice. So one is in a building, and one is like in a again in building, but to simulate hospitals. So a bit of background in terms of the need for buildings and hospitals. So we know that buildings consume around 30% of the global energy, and HVAC is one of the main contributors to the energy consumption. They're also responsible for around 40 to 50% carbon emissions. In terms of the hospitals, there's quite a lot of demands for hospital admissions for respiratory and chronic diseases. And that's the need is increasing very fast. And NHS basically is very keen on the idea of virtual ward. Basically, it means that NHS believes all sorts of treatments can be done at home, like the same as the acute nurse would do at the hospital ward, except in intubating the patient. So in terms of why we need a digital twin for buildings, in terms of why, because they would add more revenues to the basically and increasing the property value through optimized operations. It's going to reduce maintenance. Remember, when you have the reactive maintenance, it's normally cost 4 times higher than proactive maintenance. So it's easier to basically fix things before actually they can go wrong. And also it provides better experience for the users. In terms of what can be done, so we use basically very cheap sensors within the buildings to do the monitoring and to make sure that and also we have developed the AI algorithms to do the prediction. Also, the visualization that we have and the user interface is quite easy. It must be easy for different stakeholders to use, from the operations, basically for the facility manager to the tenants and occupiers. So this is one of the projects that we are currently working. It's called One Eastside. It's the tallest building in Birmingham. It's due to finish next year. We actually attended the topping out ceremony last week on Thursday. It's a 200 million investment by Patient Insurance Corporate, or PIC. It's very close to HS2, and it's 52-story building and 667 apartments. So the idea is to create a digital twin for this building. But just before going into a bit of detail, we had 3 scenarios for this building. One was to leave One Eastside as a conventional building. The other one is to make the One Eastside a smart building. And the last one was to make it intelligent. So the conventional building is that no sensor, just leave it as it is, no monitoring, no visualization, and the operation and maintenance cost might be high. The other one is to basically have some sensors. It can be to monitor the energy consumption, indoor air quality, to identify leakage. You know, basically insurance companies, they normally pay 1.8 million per day, because only for the leakage. And also, have you heard about Safety Act? Safety Act is also another basically problem now, particularly for high-rise buildings. The other option was also to make One Eastside intelligent building. We could have more advanced and intuitive visualization. We could basically equip the building with AI to make some prediction in terms of maintenance, if anything is going wrong within that building. And also making automated recommendations, particularly for the building owner and tenants, in terms of what intervention needs to be made to run the building more smoothly, and to just see if there is any risk within that building. We also wanted to make sure that One Eastside is future-proof, in a sense that, because that's basically the owner is going to keep that building for 40 years. It's a build-to-rent model. So if there would be any need, let's say in a few years' time, how we can actually add more sensors and we can monitor more parameters. And also, digital twin is not like a software that we can get off the shelf. So normally it needs to be basically developed bespoke for that building. So we make sure that we identify the client's requirements and we develop a solution that is actually meet their needs and requirements. Before going into the basically benefits, there are two key features in this digital twin platform that we have developed, which is available on desktop and on the app. So people can go either on App Store or Google Play and download the app. There are two key features. One is that the proactive and basic proactive maintenance. So for example, if there is any risk of mold within the apartments, it can identify the risk proactively. You know, it's very difficult and expensive to get rid of mold. It normally costs between 1,000 to 4,000 per apartment. Also, the other thing is integrated solution. So HVAC, particularly in the communal area, doesn't have to work at full capacity all the time. So we basically, the way it's managed and developed is that based on the number of people using the communal areas, now HVAC boards. So there is no set point. So if there are like people in the gym, it predicts the carbon, which represent the number of people, and if there is a need for fans to work, and then it basically starts working. So you can see there is quite a lot of saving for energy and carbon. Plus, there are sensors within each and every apartment, so we can predict, we can monitor the indoor air quality, we can monitor the energy, and we can also predict, and also we can enable the tenants to basically manage the electricity usage and energy usage to make sure that they are saving. So this is the like a glimpse of how the platform looks like. So for that clients, we have multiple sites across the country. Let's say we go to one site. This is the owner overview. We have the BIM model with the color coded. Each color means something. So in a very quick nutshell, they can see what's going on within the building. All the notifications are within that platform. And they can also go to the apartments and see what's happening within the apartment in terms of temperature, PM 2.5, PM10, liquid leakage, humidity, etc. And also if there is any risk of mold. If anyone interested, I can show the full platform because of the short, the time. So I just show a bit of that. So in terms of the benefits, there are different stakeholders. Property owner, they get, when they have that digital twin, effectively that means the property value more. They can justify the premium rents to the tenants. Also, we can demonstrate the ESG basically and social values because we are reducing the carbon emission. Also, we are improving the longevity of the building, as I said, because like we can reduce the mold risk, we can reduce the fire risk. We can also make sure that increase the span of HVAC. We basically now comply with the WELL certificate and BREEAM certificate. Also, we are helping them with the Safety Act in terms of the basic, again, the building comply with these requirements. Also, the property manager, you can see the operation maintenance is much easier, and the occupier or the tenants is in charge of the apartments. So the other project that we are working on is the idea of virtual ward. Effectively, as I said, the idea is that to have the patients as much as possible within houses rather than taking them to hospital. So we basically, one of in terms of the key features of the digital twin for virtual ward is that we want to enable the healthcare providers and social care providers to monitor people's health. Let's say the heartbeat, oxygen saturation, continuously. So at the moment, the way it works is that if you want to have a virtual ward, you have a set of kits, and then the patients has to do the reading and then put it in the app. So it's a bit difficult for the patients. But the idea is that we use like different type of sensors, that ambient sensors or wearable sensors to continuously monitor people's health. But also we are using AI to proactively monitor their if there is any deterioration in their health. So then there can be the automated intervention either by calling the ambulance or informing the nurse. Also, by continuously monitoring someone's health, we can tailor the treatments according to their health. Also reduce the hospital readmissions, reduce the burden on NHS staff. Particularly, after the COVID, there was a huge demand for this sort of system. And support patients with chronic diseases. So this is again another glimpse of what we do. This is one virtual ward we have installed. Again, this is the 3D model of that house that shows the indoor conditions within that house. We can also see the historical data, what's been going on with that building and with that patients. Again, that's the sort of a glimpse of what's been developed. Again, if anyone interested, we can show offline. In terms of the summary, for having the digital twin, we need to have sensors. We need to have, we need to visualize it. We need to have artificial intelligence to do the prediction. And the basically interventions could be either by sending notification to making sure that the tenants or the user can make more informed decision, or making more direct interventions by calling, like for example, opening or closing a window, switching on or switching off the HVAC. Like one thing I forgot to mention is that the HVAC now in one Eastern, for example, now is automatically switch on and switch off based on the demand, rather than full working at full capacity all the time. It can help us with reducing energy consumption, carbon emission, improving the all sorts of parameters that is important for the user. In terms of the virtual ward, we can make the virtual wards more data informed. We can monitor people's health at home, so they can basically enjoy the company of their family, have their food at home, but at the same time receive the same treatment at hospital. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move on to the final presentation from this morning, the second morning session. So Kevin McHugh from McHugh Reconstruction Limited, and the title is Digital Reconstruction Managing Production on Major Projects. So Kevin.
Thank you.
Just to say, Kevin needs to finish his PhD.
Yeah, that's it. Seems to be a common theme.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose that the main uncommon themes, I think the presentation is kind of broken up into two parts. First, we're going to talk about the barriers. When we talked about implementation, we talked about fragmentation in the industry. Patricia, you said people wouldn't turn up to meetings. Paul, you're talking about communication as well, like clear communication. So we are working in a digitized environment. Like construction projects are socio-technical projects, so you're managing people, you're managing materials, you're managing a complex environment. So you need to get people involved to communicate each other. So let's see if it works. I turned it off, did I?
Press the wrong.
Go right.
All right, there we go. So using lean construction as a pillar, how to manage this, like regardless of what it says there, lean construction is about respect for people and continuous improvement. So if we're generating all this information, we have to use it. We have to be able to manage it. So we have to create an environment where people can collaborate, where people can use the information to complete tasks, but also use the learnings for the continuous improvement. So it's very important to support people. And that is a catalyst for improving your work. So rather than, I suppose they say removing waste, but I think you do to recognize waste. So we do talk about this. Like we need to recognize waste, and waste isn't what goes into the skip, as you say. We need to recognize that. And as a person who facilitates this, you put in this, are we overproduction? Like, what are we doing here? Is this value added? So simple definition is value of any activity or process that a customer is willing to pay for because it meets their needs and adds to the final product or service. So that's what the end product is. And waste is anything, value can only be determined by the customer as a cost, but not value as a waste. So use that as a simple guideline when we're going through our meetings. We develop the team process. What is a production system? It's getting people together, shared values, behaviors for success. So we're going to turn up to the meetings. We're going to be ready for the meetings. We're going to define what good looks like. We need to get engaged with the client. So the product, DFS, value engineering, streamline design flow. And then we're talking about different processes. So the last planners, just in time, visual management, end-to-end optimization. So these are all processes that we use. But then we have our 8 wastes there. So the customer value that we want at the end is safety, quality, cost, and delivery. I think everybody, that's a common value. That's the shared goal by everybody that's involved in it. Within a production system, there's 2 things that don't add any value, and that's accidents and defects. So if we recognize that should be removed from all processes. So again, we're using the 8 fundamental ways to recognize them. When we're going through things, are we generating a waste? So if we look at the challenge between manufacturing and construction, 58% of our time is non-value added. It's waste, and that's a lot of time for a lot of people, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And a lot of them are interfaces in the construction, the interface between different operatives. People, if we talk about the fragmentation and how packages are given out, one is given a containment package, one is given a walling package, and it's basically a fight for area rather than you have to put up a bit of containment, you have to put a bit of wall, you have to interface with each other. So it's to recognize those interfaces and recognize the value. And you can see from the 58%, you break it down that waiting time and unnecessary movement are 2 things. So waiting is people, waiting on information, and then you have materials, unnecessary movement, unnecessary material handling, and then reworks or damage after installation. But again, I suppose if you compare that to the manufacturing waste, it's 26%, but completely different industries. We talked about the difference there, where we have to bring people and materials to a place in construction, where manufacturing it's going to a work order. So it's a completely different environment. But again, it's a good thing to measure, and it's a good thing to recognize and understand. So part of the production system is understanding where your wastes are, understanding, the 8 wastes. But now we're going into a digital area. There's another waste. We've got digital information waste. So 95% of all data that's captured in engineering construction industry goes unused. It's unstructured. Photographs in different folders, scans every other day that aren't seen. The ability, if we're capturing this information, we need to be able to use it. Workers spend 30% of their time searching for project data information. It's not connected. It's not visible. It's not, it's there, but it's not useful. It's actually generating other waste for managers. We're working in a digital environment. We need to get used to it, but we need to use the social skills, the technical things that we talked about in the last planner, about the collaboration, but you're generating another waste. So we need to recognize that as well. So, that I won't go on about this, but it's certain we do have to, if we're using information, we have to generate the information, use it, so create an environment where people can use the information and get the benefit from it. So that's where we're talking about this lean production system again. So we are still working generally not in a lean working environment. We're still getting measured by adherence to the program. That's the fundamental issue, but we are using lean construction practices and lean construction methodologies to improve our project delivery. So the production control system is using the phase plan, extracting what you should be doing, putting it into a shared environment where the data is visible for everybody. And that is including pre-construction activities. So the construction has to be made ready, the construction has to be described, and the construction has to be handed over and commissioned. So the whole life cycle. And that's where we talked about the synergy between BIM and lean construction, for example. Like BIM is an environment where people can collaborate. So this lean construction system is a place where people can collaborate. So we bring that down. So the phase plans are collaboratively generated. Weekly work plans then are collaboratively generated and actioned, and then they're executed. So there's a meeting cadence for this. There's daily meetings for obviously daily activity briefings, but there's weekly collaboration meetings and weekly work plan meetings, all in the same system. I think that was discussed before, that the meeting sequence. So the information is generated and used. And then there's the opportunity to use the information. If it's structured correctly, you can get feedback correctly. You can use the information to achieve learning. So it's visible. You're not spending the 13% looking for where did that go, where was the breakdown, where was this. It's, you structure the information right. You create it all in that ecosystem. So this is like where it would work. You'd have your phase plans in here, but also then you would have your look ahead plans. So there's 8 or 12 weeks, color coded for different systems. Each system can then have a constraint highlighted, so you can actively remove constraints. So you're not going clicking between different formats to find if a constraint is available or not. Is to make ready, so you can see in your swim lanes the make ready places, the prerequisite tasks, documentation in place. So each contractor can work with other contractors, and this is actually a soft skill here, where actually contractors understand how they're working together in here. They own their own boxes and they move their things around, but they actually get an understanding of how they're working together the more they're in here. And the quality, this cannot work unless the information is in there. So similarly, I turn up to the meeting, there has to be a standard of information that has to be in here, you know. And we use the SMART acronym for the information. It has to be specific, has to be measurable, has to be achievable, it has to be relevant, it has to be time bound. So all these are weekly bucks, and all the tasks are generally put into weekly elements of work. So they will naturally develop into a weekly work plan. Then a weekly work plan will naturally be developed into a daily activity plan. So it's the same ecosystem that works from your phase system all the way down to your delivery model. So this is the common data environment, if you like. So the activity briefings, the work that actually get done on site, are generated through this and completely disseminated down to this team. So how can you use this? This is another view of the same task. You have the collaborative meeting where all the supervisors are here. You have your reality capture. So there's probably over 100 tasks. So there's a level of information in here. So generally whiteboard meetings are very generic. You have to be ready in here. We can see the amount of labor that's applied. The supervisors can be sorted down. We can sort down all the different people. They can communicate what they're doing. We can use the visual tools to reference what we're doing, but the level of communication is much greater. The level of understanding of what we're doing is much greater. So the understanding of what we're actually doing, our production is better. So then we can use the information because we have a better understanding. We can improve our production. We can see the breakdowns quicker, you know. But it's important that people recognize that they have to put the quality into developing these plans. Then you get the benefit from it. And I think that's another purpose, that because we're working in an ecosystem, the quality of these plans improve because they are looked at every day. So, you know, any gaps in the plan is improved weekly. And another key thing, because there's a greater level of detail, unplanned work doesn't get into the system. Unplanned work has been, you know, a major disruption in construction, where people have thought the plan works, but then different crews come in and it's not very visible. They say you see unplanned works in. So that kind of control is really in there, and we can get that back. So we still use the commitments. So these are the commitments. They update the commitments, but we verify. We have other tools to verify the commitments. You know, reality capture, using the model. Again, a visual management, like this is an activity that turned red. You can see it straight away there. You say, oh, what happened here? There was a problem. We can get it fixed, back in. So it's improving our predictability. But again, it's using the information we're generated and daily and into the cycle. And, you know, that quality then, we're able, because we have it structured, we're able to give them a format to see what the breakdowns are, who are the best performing organizations, typical PPCs. Again, you know, that's the quality of the weekly tasks that are going in, how much is getting done, and where the breakdowns are. So that's visible, that's really quick. You can break that down by area, you can break it down by contractor, you can get that back, and then you can use an improvement plan. But again, the leadership is important here. It's how you use this information. You don't use it to, rag on people. You get, okay, this is an improvement. What can we do here? This information is really valuable. How can we use it? Look ahead data as well. You can see there who are the major organizations. Like, so if you look at this particular, there's 10 organizations, but 3 of them would be the major organizations that you need to manage. These are the guys with the most volume of the work. These are the guys that we need to go and look at. So you use this information again to improve your management system and see where that organization, the number of activities over the number of weeks. So you can see what's coming ahead. And again, I think it's with a clear production system and it goes in the cycle. You're also mitigating delays, but you're also looking at opportunities. You can see here, okay, this is finishing on time, this is finishing earlier. You can start the make ready process for the next element. You can bring that in, and then they can say, actually, and they trust that they can be brought in because they can see, because they're they understand the system. They say, yeah, we could do that. There's a gap here, there's an opportunity here, and you're protecting your construction again. And that kind of data is useful as well. So the fact that it's generated the last planner system and it's managed down at daily workforce level, it's the same ecosystem that comes back up near real-time information, and the quality of information improves. But I think this is good. Like it comes down to what the standards as well. So there's an element about turning up for meetings, being ready. So we can say whatever you want, but basically the quality of the information is the standard you're accepting. So if you're incomplete plans, incomplete make ready, incomplete safety briefings, all this, that if that's acceptable, that is your standard. So it's important that you can see that. I think using the information digitally, it's tracked, it's learning, and it is a digital eco cycle. So what I'm saying for major complex like this is typically on data centers, it's a lot of moving parts. You get a lot more specific information that is needed to manage big projects. And it's also data that isn't lost. It's data that's used, it's repeated, it's moved. So the generated data is used and improved all the time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have 10 minutes now for discussion, so can I call all the speakers, please? And I'll just invite questions from the audience. I know you're all hungry and looking forward to lunch, but
I'll start with Kevin.
please.
Okay.
So let's start with a blank canvas. Digital deployment. What would you do?
Blank canvas would be, you have to get your process right. So you're talking about where it started. You're talking about people, getting them integrated, understanding what the shared value is, shared understanding. So that's the bedrock. The digital tools will support a system. Digital isn't the savior. The digital tools should be deployed and support the process. You need to be clear on your process, and that is getting your team integrated and have a clear understanding. So you described that as well. But if you design that, you can design and manipulate your digital tools to support your process. So that's what I would do there. It's basically your process first. And digital tools are very manipulatable. They can do loads and loads of things, but you need to customize your digital tools to meet your process. And that would be the key, not the other way around, trying to squeeze in different digital tools that look great. You got to be constant with your process. When you have that understanding, I think that makes sense. And then you get the tools to support the process.
Don't digitize the waste.
Don't digitize. And we've seen the waste there. Yeah.
I think a lot of the companies have done that, especially about the boom around BIM and how it's been used or not used to bring the benefits it's supposed to be bringing. Sorry, yeah. Questions, comments from the audience, please?
Okay. Is that okay?
Very good. Just
Hold it. My take on the construction industry, this is a bit sad. You can beat the construction industry into an excited state of collaboration. And then as soon as you stop beating it, it falls back into its silos. And the further down the supply chain you get, the more true that is. And the only places I've really seen this work is when you get your vertically integrated business models, where people look at it and think, wow, I'm just going to do my own thing where I can control everything, then it works. But I just never know whether that's really the answer. I mean, if we all do that, where does that get us? Is that interesting?
I think that remains the big elephant in the room, because it goes back to the procurement systems that we operate, and until our procurement systems become more integrated.
It's hard work.
And IPD is all about that, isn't it? I mean, the idea
Yeah.
to create the right environment so you have integrated processes and companies working truly in an integrated fashion, but it's very, very hard to achieve.
I think that's the beauty though of the integrated project delivery model, which it obviously helps to achieve. I've got a couple of questions and observations. I suppose one observation is the number of times people come to national highways with an innovation. Sorry.
Thank you, just get,
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things I just want to say. And first is just an observation from national highways. First one is that the number of times people come to national highways with an innovation when it's a solution to a problem we don't have. So, you're like, well, actually, it's amazing. Oh, I've got a great idea. Can I see you? Yeah, sure. I said, I don't have this problem, but perhaps there is room for blue sky thinking. The other thing, it got me thinking about your plasterboard discussion. And it got me thinking, is plasterboard manufactured to the wrong size anyway? So actually, there should be a standardized height. Because I think plasterboard comes in what, 8x4? Yeah. And when you think about it, there used to be years ago I used to be in house construction. So there was a thing called the Parker Morris room height. It was 7'6", which sort of was about 2.250 meters. So, but plasterboard's at 2.4. So straight away, we created waste in the system. So there we are. Yeah,
I did some work on modular construction, and we actually ordered to the room design.
That is what we are.
Pay a premium, but we save time.
Well, that's it. Yeah, save time. But the premium, if we go back to the manufacturer and say, actually, just make it at the Parker Morris length or whatever.
So that is what we did this time around with them. But the manufacturer needed them to send them the schedule 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So that they would.
It's surprising, isn't it? How the hell did we get into a system of making it 8 foot long? I don't know, because there's a lot of panels that size, isn't there? I don't know.
Yeah, good. But for the workers, this came from them, and it saved them. Cutting.
Well, the workers are the experts, aren't they? Usually,
the pre-marking, we weren't able to get them. But why don't they just pre-mark just lines so that they just
value creators?
Yeah.
We learn from our administrators.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I have got a question right at the bottom of the room. Sorry. There you go.
I've used lean in manufacturing situation, and it was groups of 4 that were doing a process, and they swapped each 2 hours. So they'd come in the morning, have coffee break, tea break, and then they'd move along the line and then keep going through. So 4 people basically did 4 sequences of work and changed after each break. Biggest problem we've got in the construction industry is we have division of labour. Good old Adam Smith and all that. So you've got a bricklayer, a joiner, plasterer. If you go and work abroad, they don't have this division of labour so tightly. So the brick wall gets put up. They also put the door in. So they're not waiting. The joiner's not waiting for the brick wall to finish, and they plaster. And they finish the wall. And that's what was happening when you're in manufacturing. Construction industry, a bit like the professions, quantity surveyors, building surveyors, project managers, civil engineers, they all have the bricklayer, the joiner, the plasterer, whatever it is. Why don't we multi-trade now? You talk about the 8 foot high panels. If we are standardizing it, we don't need the skill sets. So why don't we multi-trade? Why do we still have to have these different trades?
You don't, and some people do.
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit
Please.
about the like standardized one? I got a PhD project with my student, and what he did is to compare 4 different cases of modular production as well as timber panel production. So one thing that is he found, which is I think quite valid, is when the factory production is undergoing, and there is always like competing priorities. So you can choose to reduce waste against improving efficiency. You can order the customized size at a higher cost, but then you will reduce waste. One thing we don't know is whether you create more waste down the line. So I think like the challenge really is, his study is mainly on minimizing waste, but according to his observations of 4 cases, efficiency normally take over the reduction of waste.
Please.
Thank you very much. It's a question for Saeed. Thank you. That was very interesting presentation about digital twins. My question relates to 4 further separate questions, so it will be quick ones. I assume that you are logging data every 1 hour or every 30 minutes. So whatever the frequency is, I'm interested in how do you ensure that your controller meets that data and takes the decisions accordingly to the sampling rate you have done? How do you store data? Is it local or is it going on cloud? And how do you ensure that if there is any missed data, how do you pick it up? Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. So in response to the first question is that because we want to be compliant with WELL certificate, so we are basically receiving data every 15 minutes. But we can change that frequency based on the need. But for that particular project, it's every 15 minutes. And in terms of having the where to store the data, we explored different options. The cloud, there is a challenge with that because it has the costs, ongoing costs, and that's quite substantial, either AWS or Azure. So we basically set up our own sensors, the local sensors, so the data comes to our local servers, basically. It's much cheaper. So we have our virtual machine attached to that local server, and we store the data there. There is a risk around the cybersecurity when you have the data locally, or we try to mitigate that, but the risk is higher than having the data in cloud. In terms of the missed data, so there are always outliers. One particularly that can be, for example, for AI. But as the machine learn it, so basically try to detect it over the time and try to separate them so it doesn't really affect the overall results. But there are basically much better accuracy for certain parameters. For example, we realized that, let's say PM2.5 or PM10, they are much more accurate than you want to predict them. But TVOC and temperature, they are very difficult, and the accuracy is much lower.
Yeah, thank you. Just one last thing. What type of controllers do you use?
What type of
Controllers do you use?
Sorry, what do you mean by?
Which takes the data and takes decisions, where your AI is working.
Yes, so again, all the data from the sensors go to the TTN or TTI, and from there it goes to our local server. And then we are also doing like basically the AI locally. We're using Python and other things. So we're having basically linear regression, AI plus more deep learning and machine learning. And then basically again, the data goes back to our panel, which is made out of Java, and from there goes back to the building and our visualization center. Thank you.
Alan, you wanted to just make a quick note, and then we'll break the line.
Yeah, 2 things. First is about the last planner system. Neil made a reference earlier about the trademark. The trademark is there to protect the people who use Last Planner. It's not to stop people using Last Planner. I tried to communicate this to National Highways in its previous incarnations back in the early 2000s. I failed, which is why they still talk about collaborative programming. And as a result, have detached themselves from the full body of knowledge that exists around Last Planner. So don't worry about using Last Planner by name on your projects. You'll get much better service if you do that. The second point I wanted to make, picking up what Mike said about vertically integrated organizations being able to make improvements, there is a way to do that in construction. It's integrated project delivery or an alliance. I think I've finished.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. So let's thank our speakers. As you all know, we are running late as usual, but what I suggest we do, we have now a bit of a lunch break, but also we have a discussion session.
because people did lean on their projects. No, they didn't. They did something that looked like lean, and it got lean because it wasn't effective. So I think probably you need to look for another word. To find another word like fragile, which was apparently used in the early days when talking about what we now call lean. We need to develop fragile construction.
Doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right. I know it doesn't sound right, but it's getting people. It's getting you thinking. It doesn't have to be fragile. It has to be something else, because then people will get curious when you put that word on a bid. People will get curious when you put that word in a proposal to a client, or when a client comes to you and says, "We want this."
I'd say, Alan, that it's taken us 20 years to get. It's taken us 20 years to get where we are. So if we jump ship to a new word, I'd be really
This isn't
nervous.
about jumping ship.
Well,
This
it's
is
a new
carry
word,
on
isn't it?
Doing it, but doing it under a slightly different banner.
Well,
Yeah, I think, yeah, from my perspective, I think it would be really good maybe if we could, and maybe.
Put that on record.
Yeah, shall we actually just open up the file so you can just put some notes on the screen? I think I wanted to hear what's useful, what us collectively think is going to be useful. Because I think we need means to talk and discuss. So
It'd be real, I know.
Do you want the fluffy?
I want the fluffy now.
I'll have it back after you.
Thanks. I don't know if it's possible, and it might be easier said than done. And I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but we do a IGLC, UGLC come in here. We hear a lot of case studies. We have a client, we have the GC, we get a consultant. If we're all working in this collaborative manner, it would really be nice to see if we could all try and bring, even from a software perspective, a trade. Not the general contractor, but try and entice to get a subcontractor to come in that's using this process, that's been beaten with a stick to go down this route because they've been told, but to try and hear a different conversation, to try and get them to have a speak and say why, if they liked it or they didn't. And rather than talk about how wonderful we've been as a GC, no disrespect, but or what we've done, but it's to try and get some of the other and hear a different side. Would be good to hear that. Just my perspective.
And one adjective could be collaborative construction.
Yeah, a collaborative case study would be amazing.
It's a nice little thing, this, isn't it? It's like a thought of a tie. So just a couple of things. So thoughts anyway. So when I joined NTU, Christine was here, and there was the Centre for Lean Projects. I was saying to Patricia, Christine's name is Christine Louise Pasquire. So yeah. Well, anyway, but going back to that was a really good model. It was pretty simple. It wasn't an entity. It was just something that happened. So once a year, all the students that were in NTU that were doing lean construction research came together. We presented out to industry. We had some discussions, and we came back again the next year. So it was pretty informal, but I thought it was a great model for sharing. Here's applied research in industry. And that's how I ended up joining WSP. So it was great for networking as well. Two, I'm a big fan of IGLC. I'm not a fan of LCIs generally around the world for different reasons. But I'm a big fan of IGLC because of when you turn up as like a family, and people who are there actually really care. Not that people in LCI don't, but it's a different model. So in IGLC, all the beauty is the even out when you have the conversations, or I connect with somebody else, and afterwards I connect about something else. So it's the community, which I think is a great thing. And then the last thing, so I'm going to be part of Project 13, an industry committee. So with John Grimm. So John asked me to join from a lean angle. Okay, so that's going to be working at a higher level with Project 13 thinking across the UK. So going back to what Neil was saying about being joined with something, that would be, because John was actually going to come, but he was on holidays. But that would be an opportunity for a higher connection but I think it has to be rooted back with the link with academia. And I think doing KTPs, getting people doing applied research in industry through that kind of forum, whether it's informal or not, but it needs to be informal enough that it'll keep going, and not formal enough that somebody wants to own it or have a badge for being the leader of it or whatever, because, you want people that really care. So who wants the fluffy?
You know how
There
TED
you go.
has TEDx? It doesn't work.
It's for the people online.
People online.
Oh, it's for people online. I do apologise. I thought we were all just pretending it was doing something. Right. You know how TED has TEDx, which is the local version. We could do an IGLC X and just keep affiliated with that and just localize it,
Yeah, of course.
perhaps.
That's a great idea, because the other thing I'm intending to do as well, which it's on me and I haven't done, so that's why it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, we are going to create a group, a lean group within the CIB, the Council for Research and Innovation Built Environment, which is an international group that brings together researchers in construction management. So we'll do that. So again, the idea is to try and help disseminate more and have more integration of the research that happens within the lean community with other architecture, construction management research globally. So we could set something on the back of that, which is local to the UK or maybe even regional, maybe integrate with things that happen across the European Group for Lean Construction, which was something that was kind of, they're trying to resurrect it, isn't it? But I think locally it's easier because it's difficult to find funding if you have to go to France nowadays is complicated, to find funding. But if we do something local, we can all come together once or twice a year to just have a discussion like this, to talk about what we are doing, where the needs are, where opportunities for collaboration are. And what I would hope is to see that on the back of that, we actually develop a number of KT3 proposals that we can deliver together. We could develop a number of case studies, maybe some contract research, and try to spread things. And I'm a real believer of starting small and then growing things. So,
Are you going to link with other universities? Because about 2 months ago, I did a very similar thing at Salford. They have a 3-day event. A bit like you said, Paul, students come and listen to stuff from industry and we get fed back what they've been doing. That worked well. But I think, through your academic contacts, if we could then sort of like capture the country as well.
Some of the invitations to
we
them
have,
there,
we have, but not everybody could come, and that's why we have people from representing different academic institutions here as well on the speakers. So this would be the idea is not that is led by us. Okay, the idea is that we actually create something that is shared across the UK. Any more points or ideas, please?
13:45.
Okay. Any more points? Please, if you think about it a bit more, and if you have any further ideas, you can come back to this at the end.
Maybe we can leave some post-its for people if we have anything, so that you can, if any ideas come, you can write them down for us.
You have a form at the end that you reflect, and you can add just a
Any
new
of them,
combination, anything you think works, you can add it to that form at the end.
We always have great conversations, don't we, when we get
do.
together? That's the thing.
That's it. And
We've got one unifying religion, if you like, to make things better, which is
exactly
good as well.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important that we find the ways to come together, informally even, to just share those ideas, say, okay, what we've been thinking about, what could, maybe we can be challenging you, maybe Highways England should be implementing green corridors along its highways to help deal with climate change, things like that, just open up.
Well, yeah, as you say, what are my problems? Do you know what my problems are? What keeps me awake? What keeps us at National Highways awake?
Exactly, yeah.
What are you going to do with that stuff? Like you think about the amount of land we own, we've got to look after the birds. We're one of the second or third biggest landowners in England.
Yeah, so what are we doing by increasing biodiversity in the UK? These are the kinds of things, I think we really need to be expanding and looking into. That's my belief, at least. Sorry. I can't shut up.
You know, we had a guy contact me about 2 months ago about generating lighting for the motorway off plants, of stuff you grow in the ground. Quite incredible. But it's those sort of things that, I don't know, some of you might be aware of it, but that's what we need to look like for the future. Because
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
our electricity bill is pretty high, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Luminous tarmac, that's what
Well, why not?
Well,
In Holland, yeah, haven't they? The roads division there.
yes.
Yeah. I'd like to comment a little bit about the collaboration between industry and academics. I'm a member of IGOC since 1996. I'm one of the oldest ones now. And what I see internationally is that in countries where you have this collaboration, things evolve in a much better way for different reasons. And this is the case of Brazil. We have a very strong collaboration with the industry for many, many years. And in fact, what we have in Brazil, not only in my university, but several universities around the country, we have an army of brains thinking about lean construction, developing new approaches, assessing the impacts of lean. So this is really important, and I think it helps. We help a lot the industry in that way. And from our perspective, we learn a lot from the industry, and we're able to train our students to provide capabilities in our students that are very good for the industry. Like somebody, for instance, somebody that does a master degree in our program, they have very easy, they get a good position as a lean manager or as a project manager involved in lean implementation. We have one here, so Barbara is also my former student. She's working for Arcadis. Her master dissertation was something applied to the context of a specific company. It was about visual management. So I think it's really important to work together. I know that there has been good initiatives in the UK, but we should expand that.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
And this idea of having events, having partnerships, networks, it's really good.
Thank you, Carlos. Right. Thank you all so much. I think we've heard some great thoughts here, but we have to go back to the agenda. So we will have now Professor Rakesh Mishra's presentation on the digital twinning for infrastructure asset management. So Rakesh is was a former colleague from the University of Huddersfield, and also currently we've been working, we keep on working together, which is great, on a number of research bits. So Rakesh, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll reserve with food and coffee.
Yeah, please help yourselves. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Patricia, for inviting me for this, what I say, lecture. And initially I was told that I have about 20 minutes, but then I was told that now it's 15 minutes. Now it seems I have only 10 minutes. So I will try to rush through it.
Let's make it late and go for 5.
Should I just go now then? Done. Thank you. So the topic is, as it has been announced, digital twinning for infrastructure asset management. And you can see a picture of Huddersfield Smart House, which is my proud possession at the moment. And it acts as my secondary house, where I do all my research. So in this particular presentation, I'm going to speak about what do we mean by digital twinning. And then I'll explain about the Huddersfield Smart House Research Facility that we have. And all of you are welcome. It's an open invitation for you to come there, have a look. I'll be your host. And you can look at the facilities that we have in there. I'll provide the systems overview for digital twin. And then you may remember this day, because how many of you have seen a digital twin actual working?
Maybe.
Yeah, you have seen it earlier. Today, for the first time, you will see a digital twin working in this particular lecture. So remember this date today, okay? I'll explain the flowchart of digital twin, and I will demonstrate a digital twin working in real time. And then we'll discuss what more we can do as we go forward. If you look at the literature now, you'll find that there are lots and lots of papers on digital twinning. People give lots of lectures on digital twinning. But if you ask what is the definition of a digital twin, pin drop silence. People define digital twin in their own way. For some people, simulation is a digital twin. For some people, control system is a digital twin. For some people, a picture is a digital twin. So what is the actual digital twin? People define it. But to me, my digital twin will be the one that will be running on the computer and will be mimicking all the processes that are taking place inside me in real time on the computer. I hope our NHS in next 20 to 30 years, and our computers become so strong and the NHS becomes so resourceful that we have our own individual digital twins on the NHS database, so that people can think about what will be my medical needs 5 or 10 years going down the line, and that will help NHS plan its resources in a much better manner. So a digital twin is a virtual representation of an object, of a system, where all the processes taking place in the physical system are mirrored in the digital twin on the virtual world. And how do we achieve it? There are 3 basic components of a digital twin. The first is the physical system, me, my biological system, but this room, physical system. Then this system running on the computer, and then a system that combines this physical system with the cyber system, that is the cyber physical system. And this is the cyber physical system, which is very, very important because it links a physical world with the virtual world. And that is what I'm going to show it to you today. Now, I want to clear one common misconception. And there are 3 different types of sort of numerical computational practices currently being done in different academic institutions, different parts of the industry. And each of them are saying that they are digital twins. So in the first case, you have a physical system like this particular room. I know in this room, temperature of this window is 21 degrees. So if I create a computer model of this and provide this boundary condition to it and find the temperature distribution inside the room, that is the first part, which is offline system, and we have been doing it for the last 50 years. So finite element modeling, computational fluid dynamic modeling. The second system is online system, where if I have a sensor there, I take this data from the sensor and put it into my computational model, and in real time I see how things are evolving in the room. That is online system. The digital twin system is where I measure the system's temperature at this particular moment in time, put into my simulation model, get the complete distribution, then have some data analytics out of it, and based on which I can calculate whether a room is comfortable or not, and then I can change my HVAC system's control in real time. So that is the real digital twin, and this is what I'm going to demonstrate to you today. So this is a very clear distinction between offline system, online system, and a real digital twin. Now, before we start, I'll go with a very inaccurate digital twin of mine. It wants to say something to you.
Yeah.
So in a smart house, we not only got at the products, engineering processes, but we also got the social processes, behavior patterns, how people interact with monitoring equipment, how the social group dynamics works in the smart house context. most importantly, currently we are looking at how the indoor air quality is getting affected, what type of impact it may have on the population. So this is just a very small snapshot of the things that we are doing. But the extent of the work that we have initiated in last 10 years is enormous. We're trying not only to accelerate our research output, but to work with others within the university and accelerate their research output. I'm very, very hopeful that going forward, as a factor in this time, this will be a great investment.
I'm really sorry. Like me today, my vocal cords are not 100% effective. Same way, I think my digital twin was not good enough in terms of the voice qualities. My apologies. But in short, we have Huddersfield Smart House Research Facility. We can simulate lots of conditions there, any temperature, like not any temperature, but the habitable temperatures. And then we can do lots of social activities there, and we can monitor how the indoor air quality changes, how the behavior pattern changes. We have lots of medical equipment also. We have lots of wearable sensors also, so that we can do lots of studies there in that sense. So this is just a smart house where we have lots of sensors, lots of automation there, and we can carry out a number of activities there. This is just a snapshot of my students whom I requested to act as models. So they have, you can see lots of my colleague lecturers and some of my students, they are there in different parts of the smart house. So this is the smart house buildings, 2-story house within a lab and under controlled conditions. So we can maintain temperature inside, outside to a reasonable extent. It has all the functional components of a house. So we have kitchen where we can cook. My students threaten to cook chicken curry there all the time so that they can investigate the effect of cooking of chicken curry on the indoor air environment. And I have been registering that so far, but I don't know for how long will I be able to register that. So this is, we also have a medical room where we work with a large number of companies. So like I've listed here a few companies, so Trust Electric Heating. We have a large number of knowledge transfer partnerships with them, 3 in total so far. Then we work with the mattress company on, these are the mattresses where which are used for patients in terms of how can we equalize pressure distribution. And so some of these companies, we are working with water leak monitoring systems. So it's quite a highly active area within the research labs that we have at the moment, and I would like any of you to please make use of it for any of the work that you may have in this particular area. So we were talking about digital twin. So these are all the sensors that are placed inside the smart house, and all these sensors, all the data is taken to a central hub, and from the central hub, it is taken to the cloud, and from the cloud, that data is taken to our computational models. So this just shows a snapshot of the screen that the different type of sensors we have. So we have even the instrumented the central heating system, so we can in the real time measure the performance of central heating system. We can calculate the thermal environment inside the room, and all this data can then further be fed into the to develop more analytics. Like for example, here we have a temperature sensor and we have a humidity sensor, and then we have a motion sensor. And we notice that as the motion sensor detects someone coming inside the room, then both the temperature and humidity are affected. And not only that, we can see there is a spike in the carbon dioxide levels inside the room. So we can get the digital signature of someone coming inside the house, and we can see what effect it will have on the indoor air quality. We can also monitor the PM 2.5, PM10 at any point within the smart house. So now I'll not take too long, and I will like to demonstrate to you the digital twin. So the overview of digital twin shows the different type of sensors we have, and more importantly, what differentiates us from others is we have a number of simulation models. And what these simulation models do is they convert 5 sensors into 5 million sensors. That is, we convert data at 5 points measured to 5 million points within this space. So spatial accuracy increases significantly because of this. And then we have control system that we can use. So we are using a number of sensors. We are using advanced software systems. And then we are combining all this into our digital twin. So here, this slide, this shows the physical house, and this on the left bottom, it shows the digital twin of the physical house that runs on the cyber system. The architecture of digital twin is as shown in this particular slide. Now, I have an ambition, like right now when we talk about digital twins, we always think of big companies doing digital twinning work. I wish all the universities to start creating some element of digital twin activity, and this work is towards that purpose. So what we have done here is, we have a smart house, we have used a controller, and that controller is working alongside the software tools, MATLAB, ANSYS, to calculate what is the performance of the system, and then it allows us to control the operation of the system so that we can maintain the thermal quality. So we're using real-time boundary conditions, and then we have calibrated our computational models, boundary conditions. When we are using computational models in our digital twin, these have to be accurate. There is no point having inaccurate digital models. So we clearly work on making them accurate. And we test a variety of conditions. So this is a heating, when we are heating using a radiator, how the thermal gradients are set up across the room. We are using constant radiator temperature, and then we are monitoring heat distribution. And once this is done, across the space, we can calculate the thermal comfort based on the standard process. So this is the flow chart of the digital twin that I just explained. I won't repeat it because when I'm just going to show you the digital twin, you will see it yourself. But just to give an overview, we have a window. Window is partially open. We are using the conditions at the window as input to our model. Then we are calculating thermal comfort inside the room. Once thermal comfort is calculated, we are seeing whether it is within the range or not. If not, the window opens. Again, the same process is repeated till the thermal comfort at the required level is attained within the room. So this shows the different elements of that digital twin that we are using. And now, remember the day, remember the time. So what you're seeing is that different window openings, how the temperature, pressure, and the air velocity inside the room are changing, and it computes thermal comfort. Then it actuates the window. Thank you very, very much.
All right, so let's like change of schedule again. Barbara, I need to be on the
Oh, sorry. Just taking it easy.
So Barbara from my case and you.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah. Who's going to be presenting on lean and innovation in design? We'll take questions at the end of the 4 presentations. So please make a note of your question.
Okay. Can you hear me well at the back? I will try my best. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Today I will be presenting Arcadis Lean Journey and Case Study. I changed slightly the title because as soon as we shared the flyer, we were still discussing how we were going to frame this presentation because I wanted to share a bit about our journey with Arcadis, but I also have this academic hat, so I also wanted to mention a bit about my research. So hopefully I will be able to cover a bit of both worlds with this presentation. Talking a bit about myself, so I'm Barbara Pedal. As you can probably tell by my accent, I'm from Brazil, but I have been living in the UK for 6 years now, and I'm coming from this architectural and urban planning background. And as Carlos Formoso mentioned previously, I did my master degree in construction management with a big focus in lean and design management. I also, trying to make some connections with the previous presentations, Paul mentioned about the KTP and knowledge transfer partnership. So I was a KTP associate in the past as well with Arcadis, and that was the moment that I started my collaboration with the company. And I would agree with Paul that it's a great framework, and we can see the benefits and the results with the company at the moment. And what I was also going to mention is about my hobbies, because I'm doing a part-time PhD, so well, I'm not really sure if I have any hobbies, but I'm doing also a part-time PhD with NTU, and it's about digital visual management. And I will touch on that later on. So why we started our lean implementation with Arcadis, and actually this started way before I joined the company, but the 3 main drivers for that implementation were starting with the client, pushing this lean and quality agenda, and client, I mean National Highways that we have here within the room. And because they were pushing that agenda, we saw an opportunity for us to improve our service, but also to stay relevant within the market. The second one is related to the initiatives that we have within the industry, like the initiatives with National Highways, like the Lean Buddy system, the maturity assessment that we go through in an annual basis. So these are also drivers for us to make sure that we are on track with our implementation. So everything is started because of that, and because we had those systems in place and supported us to create a consistent framework for our development. But as soon as we started the implementation, we started to realize the benefits of implementing Lean as well. And the third one is about the productivity improvements that the government was asking us to be more productive, be more efficient, and then that was another driver. Oops, wrong side. So our journey started back in 2010, but we got momentum in 2016 and 17 when our leadership, the high leadership within Arcadis, had a training with National Highways. And then from that, we started our development. During 2018 and 19, we started to develop the Lean strategy. And that was the moment that we had a core team appointed within the company. And we also started some collaborations with universities. And at that point, I was in the university side, not the company side. So that was the point that we started some collaborations about Lean with Patricia, Formoso, and other professors. Between 2020 and 22, we started to structure our deployment. We had the first Lean Leaders training within the company, and then we had the knowledge transfer partnership between that period. During 2023, we then had our Lean champions appointed across the business units, and that is helping us until now. So it's something we implemented in the past, and we keep maintaining because we see the benefit of having champions that drive us and help us to implement across the business. And we also have additional collaboration with universities, with Aston University, another KTP, and also with Future Roads and Roads Research Alliance with Cambridge University. But really, during 2024 and 2025 was the big momentum for us. I think we achieved lots of good things that I want to mention some before I jump into some of the details. It's starting with the leadership commitment. I think we always talk about having buy-in from the top down and bottom up. And really, when we got the buy-in from the leadership to support the implementation of Lean and linking with the goals within Arcadis, that makes a massive difference within the company. A consistent Lean implementation. So in the past, we used to have a lot of implementation, but it's still kind of ad hoc. And then since we started this approach of using a Lean execution plan and focusing on specific projects, we are achieving more results. And I will mention a bit more on this Lean execution plan in a bit. Our team is starting to grow, so not only in the UK, but GC as well. Some of the best practices that we started to share cross-sector with rail, with mining sector, etc., and cross-country as well. So in February this year, we had a Brazilian colleague from Arcadis Brazil visiting us, and we realized they were implementing Lean and IPD back in Brazil, and we had a number of presentations with National Highways, and we are looking now to explore how we can transfer the best practices from Brazil to the UK and the opposite as well. And even the discussions we had before about HELMA and how we can expand or further enhance the approach would be a really good case for us to implement back in Brazil and see how that works in another context as well. So yeah, now we have 90% of our people aware of Lean and they implement in a daily basis. We have every year new cohorts of Lean leaders, and we were recognized as a top organization within the HELMA assessment, which for us was a massive achievement. And this is why I thought it was worth mentioning, because today I'm going to present a bit more on how we are structured and some of the case studies. So Lean, as we all know, Lean is not about the technique, only about the techniques, but about the philosophy that drives from the objectives and goals of the company to the people. And this is why we have this link to the policy deployment. So I'm not going into the details on this, but it's just to mention that for us it's quite important to have Lean, and similar to Balfour Beatty, I think, as you have as one of your pillars, to have from the global, from the goals, linked to our mobility strategy in the UK, linked to our charters, and then projects with our Lean execution plan, and linked to people as well, and making sure this is part of their professional growth development as well, their goals, personal goals, and how we are escalating that back, which is quite important. So our development is basically split across capability, implementation on projects, and efficiencies and best practices share, which is quite simple, but help us a lot to have those defined pillars. And how we are achieving that? We are achieving that by having a Lean plan that we revisit in a yearly basis. And we have a charter for each of the business units that we work with that basically states how they are going to deliver that during the year. And similar to the slide that Neil presented earlier today, how we know that we are getting there. So yeah, of course, HELMA is one of the metrics that we have. But following HELMA, we usually develop the Lean implementation plan for the year, which is here. And then on that, we basically monitor all our targets for the year, including the training, including all the improvements and innovation that we identify, including the implementation on projects and how well they are performing, and the awareness across the business as well. And that is based on the National Highways approach. Talking about our implementation, I know that probably all of you are very aware of that and have that within your companies as well. But the starting point was having the toolkit. After that, we realized that we needed to have the Lean execution plan, which is in a project basis. So for each project that we are implementing Lean, we have a Lean execution plan in place that help us to set up how we are going to deliver Lean on that project, from roles and responsibilities, from techniques that we are implementing, how we are going to measure the efficiencies on that project, and how we are going to assess the maturity for that specific project. So this is a very consistent way, but at the same time, it still gives flexibility for the different projects for them to understand the techniques that are applicable to that context and that type of project. And then from there, measure based on the baseline they just created. And then, as I mentioned, we do the project maturity assessment in a project level as well. So a very similar one to Helma, but the simplified Helma for a project, we are running that within our projects and we capture the efficiencies. So basically our foundation, like the key techniques that we make sure that our people are implementing, focus around collaborative planning, less planners, wherever we call it, visual management, lessons learned and problem solving, process and value stream mapping, as we are talking about a lot about design and decision making. And we already seen and realized lots of benefits, including a stronger relationship with clients, which is one of the key ones. Now we also have targets, efficiency targets, and we are targeting between 1 and 1.5 of the project revenue, only related to Lean enable efficiencies. And another key one is the problem-solving culture, that everyone is always ready to improve, even like small process and steps within their day-to-day work. Techniques and our foundation in Arcadis, one is visual management, and is also my PhD topic. So I'm going to try and make a link on that. And my PhD focus mainly on digital visual management. From an academic perspective, might be a bit superficial, so I'm sorry for that. We can have another in-depth discussion on my PhD in another moment. But before we make a start, the definition of visual management is basically an information management strategy, and I really like this definition here, which is establish a visual workplace for close-range communication by using easy-to-understand visual devices, and could be visual, but could be sensory devices as well to that. In my research, I'm exploring in the design context, in the highways projects, and I'm at the moment considering to expand that to other sectors. And the main case studies are around digital whiteboards, dashboards, and other apps to support planning and control, but other design management activities as well. The aim of my research is to devise a method for digital visual management for the development and implementation, supporting collaborative work. And as I said, it's focusing on highways. So the main studies collected data for the PhD is highways, but we are currently discussing and considering the options to also run some case studies with rail, buildings, and mining to capture more data. And I believe Carlos Formoso mentioned before about the complexity and the uncertainty in this context. So this is quite relevant when we are talking about visual management, because it means that we have more people, disciplines, organizations involved, and usually this creates another level of challenge for us to implement digital visual management as well. About the PhD progress, there are as Paul mentioned, I'm also using a research design approach and design science research approach and action research as well. And because of that, there are a number of iterations. So first iteration was basically defining the sequence of steps for digital visual management development, adapting models for existing models, basically, and using digital whiteboards for planning and control. Second iteration, sorry if you cannot see it, and I hope I'm fine with time, you let me know. The second one was about the refinement of those steps by adding additional ones specific to the context. Again, the same case studies using digital whiteboards. The third one, expanding the digital visual management method for development and implementation, and also expanding the scope, not only planning and control and digital whiteboards, but also other functionalities that we have in design management and other types of devices and practices as well. And the final one that I'm currently at the moment working on is validating and refining and simplifying actually the method. And the idea is that we are going to use some case studies from highways, but also the other sectors, as I previously mentioned. So some of the projects that we are working at the moment and capturing data, they are design and build highways projects. And the idea and the interesting side of this is that for both projects, we started the implementation with off-the-shelf products. And then from there, we moved to an internal solution that is helping us to have a more consistent approach. Some of the challenge that we had with the implementation of the shelf products relates to the misalignment with our existing planning systems that we have, which is not ideal because then was also creating some additional work for us and also additional time to implement because our focus is to create the framework for collaboration. Oh, I'm fine. Thank you. The idea is that we create this framework for collaboration and the tool should be supporting that. So that is our main focus now. And then some of the benefits that we perceive so far is they are related to the short-term visibility that is really useful and we want to maintain that. And the routines were helping us to identify blockers, delays, etc., as we all know and always discuss. So as next steps for the implementation and kind of recommendations that we are following at the moment, we are trying to follow with this consistent approach across all the projects, but having a level of flexibility that allow us and allow people to have different ways of input data, but still getting the same outcome and still having this clear framework for collaboration. Talking from the Arcadis and the company journey, we are very, very far from over in this journey. We had and have many challenges, some related to cultural changes, I would highlight, and sometimes engaging teams as well. Another one is about as soon as we start growing, we have challenge with the sectors, with the different types of projects and contracts as well. As soon as we have different types of clients and contracts, we have different requirements, and that is a challenge. And also our teams working globally and remotely as well. So we are moving into totally digital world, but sometimes we should miss the sticky note, let's be honest. And we move back to the sticky notes as well. If I was starting today, I would focus a lot in building this lean core team as soon as possible to lead the way. Strong communications strategy, and I think this links back to your PI strategy that you mentioned and how we get that more exposed as well. Another one is about embedding lean as soon as possible within the project. So from the start, sometimes we think that would be a good idea to implement at the end, and sometimes it's too late to make a start on that. And also assessing project maturity and creating the roadmap, because this helps us to create a very clear strategy for each project on how we are going to develop. And of course, we cannot forget of having fun during the way and using Elmo, you see? I think I should be fine with time. Thank you so much.
Are you able to stay for the questions?
Yes, I think so. No, I think I'm. What time is the question?
It's 3:15.
Maybe
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Barbara won't be able to stay for questions again, so let's take some questions for Barbara now. Are there any?
Well, what did you learn most about doing a KTP?
That's a good one. I think so. First of all, working in a KTP as a KTP associate helped me to understand how to develop. I already had that learning from the master, so don't get me wrong from us. But it's a very structured framework on how we develop a product at the end of it. So I think by going to the KTP, that was my key learning, like how to develop that product and at the same time make sure that the product was useful at the end of the day for the company, engaging with the teams and bringing everyone within the journey with me. So that was the key one for me, I believe. But that was a difficult question because I had so many learnings, and I would recommend the KTP to everyone that I could.
One update about the effort of making visual management digital. I know you started in your master dissertation. The thing with the digital visual management is that you need a system, you need somebody to develop the system, and sometimes you lose one thing that is fundamental in visual management, which is collaboration, flexibility. You depend on the guy that understands the system, and in the end, it becomes a top-down thing.
Yeah.
So how is it evolving? Is it going that direction? Have you found ways to overcome this difficulty?
So I think it's something we should see as a challenge. We are facing in different ways. We are usually bringing everyone within the journey with us when we are implementing digital. Sometimes we are going back to sticky notes and manual and traditional visual management as well. So at the moment, we are pretty much adopting a hybrid approach of traditional with visual. But for the visual one, if we don't bring them along the journey when we are developing, they won't be using later on. And then even though if I think it's amazing, the system, if they are not in the journey with me and with the team, they are not going to implement. So it's all about the people and bringing them on board when we are developing and implementing, and making sure that it's not adding additional steps for them. It's just making their life easier at the end of the day, because that's the aim of visual management. It's not like create a new system that is amazing, but it's adding like extra steps for them and extra time, etc. So it's just making their life easier at the end of the day and bringing them along the journey. That is what I would say. But it is a challenge, so we are always learning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions, Barbara? No, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. Yes, of course.
Sorry. 10.
Oh my God, I'm not going to let you press.
We'll just-
Oh, I won't press.
All right, so my turn. I want to walk through quickly what we are doing, what we are exploring now. So generative AI is the main topic, but the theme behind it is productivity. So I'm exploring ways that generative AI can help construction managers, project managers, lean consultants to improve their productivity. So a bit of introduction. So what it is, so machine learning helps us to be more efficient because it recognizes patterns and it can predict the future words, not the future word, but the words. So the way it works, based on very complicated mathematical and statistical equations. But yeah, from 3-4 years ago, it's